Welcome to KIT203 ICT Project Management and Modelling. This short video is an introduction to scope management from the perspective of the PMBOK. This is the contents of this video: a definition of scope management, the processes involved in scope management, collecting requirements and identifying requirements. Here we are on our content map. You can see we're looking at scope management. What is the scope? It's all of the work required and the processes that need to be created and followed to end up with the deliverables of the project. The deliverables are what is actually produced by the project. It might be hardware, software, documents or reports. Whatever is produced are the deliverables. And so project scope management is how we decide what is part of the project and what is not part of the project. That is, what is in scope and what is beyond the scope of the project. These are the processes that the PMBOK requires for scope management: planning the scope, collecting requirements, defining the scope, creating the work breakdown structure, validating and controlling the scope. Now, remember that the PMBOK tells us what we need for project management, but not how to do project management. So there's not that much detail in how to plan your scope, but it is important to plan, validate and control the scope. Some textbooks don't talk about the work breakdown structure, which is about breaking the project down into manageable tasks. We won't talk about it here either, but Prince2 and Agile have opinions about similar tasks. But if we want to know about what the scope of the project is, we need to know about what the clients want from us. This process of collecting requirements is a pretty complex art form that we're really only going to touch on now, but I'll point you towards some more sources. We'll do this in a lot more depth in KIT204, Solutions Analysis for Business. Getting the information from the clients is called data elicitation, and there are lots of ways of doing that. Then you may need to analyze the data, work out what the client actually needs in terms of your work, and then validating the data that you've collected. Remember that at the beginning of a project, it won't be clear what people need. It'll be fairly clear what people want, though. You need to keep returning to the collecting of the requirements so that you can be sure that you understand what you should be doing. And this is why. Okay, it's a lousy diagram, but the point is clear. It's much cheaper to fix problems at the requirement stage than once you've put the project into operation. In fact, any time is a lot cheaper than doing it during operation. But if you have a tight budget, get your requirements right. PMBOK actually does make suggestions for ways of collecting requirements. These are brainstorming, interviewing, focus groups, surveys, and benchmarking. But other researchers also recommend observations and prototyping. There are lots of ways of collecting requirements, and you will choose methods that are appropriate for your client, for your environment, for your project, for your cultures, for your time, budget, and scope. In this unit, you're going to do lots of interviewing, but there are lots of other ways of collecting data as well. Benchmarking is also a useful way of collecting requirements, where you look at what other projects have done that are similar to yours in some ways and take their ideas. There's no point in reinventing the wheel, of course. You may need to use some of these other techniques this semester as well. We know from the project brief and business case what we're trying to do in the broadest terms, but we need to do some more planning to know exactly what we're going to do. This planning will identify what the deliverables are, how to achieve those deliverables, who and when will make it happen. The team's going to be creating the cost estimates and schedules as well as the functional specifications. Really basic things are identified during this phase because if it's not identified, it's not going to be part of the final deliverable. Working hard during planning will pay off by increasing your project's chances of success. Project requirements will come from the project sponsors and the users, and often a bunch of other stakeholders too. Collecting, documenting, prioritizing, and sharing requirements is called requirements management. We have three key objectives for this process. We want our stakeholders to agree on what they want. We want to know what the system needs to do, and we want formal specifications so that we can test the final system does what our clients wanted it to do. There's a lot more about requirements in the next video. And that's it for this video. We talked about project scope management and the processes involved in it, how requirements are collected and identified. If you have any questions, please ask, and thanks for listening.